I can still hear the microphone squeal, sharp as a blade, when Tessa grabbed it and said, "Naomi is pathetic. She's marrying a liar." I can still see the guests' faces turn toward me, that slow swing of shock, like a tide going out and leaving me standing alone on wet sand. My veil was pinned too tight and my scalp burned. Somewhere near the back, a child laughed, not understanding the way a moment can snap and take you with it. I was halfway down the aisle, and Ethan was at the altar waiting for me, and Tessa, my own sister, my maid of honor, had just taken the entire day and torn it in half. She didn't just whisper it. She didn't come to me in the morning with a trembling voice and a warning. She took the microphone, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "He's lying about who he is. I have proof." She waved her phone like it was a torch and the church a dry field. And I don't know why I didn't drop my bouquet, why I didn't faint clean out. Maybe because I've been holding myself together since I was 12 years old. People started murmuring. Our mom put a hand on her chest like she always does when Tessa does something dramatic. Dad was frozen, jaw clenched, like he felt the foundation under him shift. Priya stepped forward, hand on my elbow, but I just walked. I walked to the front and looked at Ethan. His face didn't crumble. He looked calm. There was fear in his eyes, yes, a flicker, but his shoulders stayed steady. He didn't even raise his voice when he said, "Tessa, not here." She laughed that laugh she got from YouTube, that manufactured kind of disbelief. "Oh, right, because the truth can't handle daylight? Naomi, he lied to you about what he does, who he works with." She started reading out messages she claimed were his, telling some woman he was using me, that I was useful. The phones started rising like a forest of metal and glass. I could feel the video being recorded, the comments being typed before anyone left the pew. The organist stood, not sure if he should keep playing. I wish I could say I ran. I didn't. I remember turning and taking the microphone back from my sister, my hand steady, because when someone tries to humiliate you, the most powerful thing you can do is not give them your tears. "Tess," I said quietly, "this is not the place." I looked at the guests, my friends, my family, and I said, "We're going to pause. Please step outside and get some air. I need a moment with my sister and my fiancé." It's funny. The voice you find when everything else is gone. We stepped into the tiny side room, the one with the stained glass and the crooked coat rack. Priya closed the door behind us. Tessa crossed her arms and smirked at me, bringing up her phone again. "Read it," she said. Ethan didn't look at the phone. He kept his eyes on me. "I can explain," he said, "but not in here, not with her filming." He glanced at Tessa's hand, and there it was, the little red light of a live stream. She was broadcasting my humiliation to her followers. I pressed my lips together and did something I should have done years ago. I spoke for myself, not to her audience. "Turn it off or leave." She rolled her eyes but tapped the screen. Here's the first secret. I wasn't surprised, not really, because Tessa has always turned my life into a show. When we were kids in Dorchester, Dad worked long hours as a contractor and Mom worked nights at the hospital. I was the one who made sure Tessa had lunch money, gym socks, homework printed. She was sunshine when she wanted to be. People were drawn to her. Teachers forgave her. She always found a camera, even before there were cameras in every pocket. She could cry and make it look like a music video. I covered for her. I covered so much that when I look back, it's like looking at a quilt made of excuses. At 19, she asked me for help with rent. I took a second job planning events at a community center. At 22, she needed to borrow my car for a week that turned into 3 months. At 25, she wanted to start a wellness brand. I gave her my savings on a handshake. She launched an Instagram and a website with my money. When I asked for a plan, she blocked me for a week, then came back with a smile and a promise. That was the year I learned promises can be currency and bankruptcy at the same time. So when she stepped into my wedding and put on a show, it was terrible. But it was also familiar. That familiarity hurt worse than the stranger videos that were already being edited with captions like, "When the maid of honor spills the tea." Ethan and I left the church quietly by the side door. Priya told the guests with her lawyer voice that we would be in touch. Mom cried and hugged Tessa. Dad stood in the vestibule like someone who'd just seen a building he poured sweat in to catch fire. We went to the car and drove 3 blocks. Ethan parked, hands on the wheel, knuckles white. I watched his chest rise and fall like he was holding an ocean inside. Then he turned to me. "Naomi, I'm so sorry. I should have prepared you better." He hadn't lied to me about his name or anything in that awful way Tessa insinuated, but he had kept something back. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "I'm not just a forensic accountant at a firm. I've been working with the state on a case. I signed confidentiality agreements. I couldn't tell you, Naomi, because it would put you in the middle and it could jeopardize it. And that case involves someone close to you." It didn't take me long. "Chase," I said. I remembered the sunglasses indoors, the bragging, the way he called what he did creator fundraising. He was one of those guys who could make the word capital sound like perfume. "Chase," Ethan said softly. "He and his partners are running something that looks like a creator fund, but operates like a funnel. They use people's credit, people's names. They promised returns to small influencers and moms who wanted side income, and they looped them into advertising ad buys that never cleared. The state has been watching the flow, and Tessa is in proximity. That's why you didn't want him near our accounts." I remembered Ethan getting quiet every time Chase's name came up. I remembered thinking maybe Ethan was jealous, or maybe he just didn't like flashy people. I felt a fist unclench inside my chest and another one form. "Did she know?" I asked. He shook his head. "I can't say what she knew and what she didn't. But those texts she showed, they're fabricated. Priya can probably tell from a glance. The app they use is sloppy." I pressed my hands into my lap, nails biting. Tessa had humiliated me for a show, probably at Chase's urging, and now the pieces were landing. I felt betrayed by my own blood. But this wasn't a tantrum I could wait out. This was calculated. "All right," I said. My voice wasn't loud. "We're going to do this right. We're going to expose the truth. But we're going to do it legally. No screaming, no revenge that backfires. We're going to shut this down step by step." Ethan put his hand over mine. "Naomi, I love you." He said it like a promise, not a plea. He didn't try to fix my face or my day. He let me be humiliated and furious and rational. I didn't cry then. But I did when Priya came to the apartment that night with soup in a folder and sat on my kitchen floor in her silk sari blouse because she hadn't had time to change after the church. She put her head on my knee and said, "I'm here. Now show me those messages." We connected my phone to the TV and pulled up the live video Tessa had posted before I forced her to turn it off. Priya paused and zoomed. Different font weights, inconsistent timestamps. Someone did a screen mock-up. That plus the venue's recording, this is defamation. And if she spread false statements knowingly, we can act. We took the first step that night. We froze my credit. I logged into Credit Karma and saw 2 lines of credit I did not recognize, a store card and a bank line. They were a few months old. My blood went cold. I remembered the day my mailbox was lighter than usual. I remembered the loaner laptop Tessa borrowed and forgot to return for 3 weeks. She had my mail. She had my laptop. It wasn't a stretch to imagine the rest. We filed an identity theft report online and flagged the accounts. Priya drafted a letter to the platform Tessa used, citing defamation and fraudulent content. We didn't blast anything on social media. I posted a simple statement. "We paused our ceremony due to a family matter. We ask for privacy. We will be back with the truth." It wasn't satisfying, but it set a tone. Controlled, legal, calm. It was a tone I'd never set with Tessa before. The next morning, the video had over 200,000 views. The comments were split, as they always are. Queen, expose the liar. And this is cruel. Don't do this at a wedding. Mom texted me a string of crying emojis and then, you know your sister means well. Dad sent me, gloves are off. What do you need? That difference between them was the difference between my childhood bedtime stories and the reality of paying bills. Ethan went to his office. He said he had to notify certain people that Tessa had interfered and that the investigation might now be exposed to the public. I went to see my mother. She made coffee like coffee could fix humiliation. Tessa was there, feet up on the sofa, wearing my college sweatshirt. Oh, she said when I walked in, fake surprise like bad perfume. Here to apologize for planning your wedding around a scammer? I took a breath. Turn your phone off, I said. She groaned, but Mom said, Tess, please. She put it face down. We were quiet for a second. You know that kind of quiet that vibrates? That. What you did yesterday, I said, was not love. That was cruelty for an audience, and the messages you showed were fabricated. Tessa scoffed. Nice try. Chase found them. He knows people. He wanted to protect you. She leaned forward. He told me Ethan is not who he says he is. He told me his firm works with some shady whatever. Naomi, you don't know the guys Chase runs with. He knows investors. He knows the inside. Is that why you think it's okay to use my name to open accounts? I said. Sometimes you drop a pebble and you watch the ripples. Tessa blinked just once. What? No, you've always had to make everything about you. I stood. You're right, Tess. I'm making this about me now. My credit is frozen. If you've used my name for anything, this is your chance to tell me. She stared at me, then at Mom. Mom, she said in a small voice, tell her to stop attacking me. Mom wrung her hands. Naomi, we're family. I'm sure Tess had her reasons. That was when I realized the second secret. My mom's heart had been enabling hurting for so long she couldn't tell the difference anymore. It wasn't malice, it was muscle memory. I kissed her forehead. I love you, Mom, but I'm filing the reports. I can't keep paying for her mess. Tessa rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd get dizzy. You're not tough, Naomi. You're boring. I left. Priya called me as I was pulling onto the highway and said, You have to see this. She sent me a screenshot of an email thread forwarded from an assistant at a brand Tessa was trying to pitch. It turned out Priya had a friend in marketing. Tessa had pitched a Sister Saves Sister podcast the week before the wedding with a live reveal. My stomach flipped. It had been planned. She'd written, We'll expose the truth and I'll be the moral voice. It's a redemption arc. There it was in black and white, my humiliation storyboarded for sponsor dollars. The betrayal didn't just sit, it grew edges. That night, Ethan came home early. He put a folder on the table and said, You need to hear this. You don't have to like me. You just need to hear it. He explained the structure of the investigation he was part of. No names, no privileged information, just the outline. Money circulating through shell LLCs. Creator fund, buy-ins that went to pay for ad packages that were fake. Chase's company, which called itself BrightArc, had been identified as a node. They'd used people's names to open accounts and then used those accounts as proof of liquidity to pitch to others. We can't charge Tessa with anything, he said carefully, unless we can tie her to a decision or a document. If she was just used, we treat it differently. But we need facts. I thought about the mail. I thought about my credit. She had my mail. I pulled out my phone and scrolled. There it was, a photo she'd sent me of a cute envelope with my name on it. Thought this was yours, with a winky face months ago. She thought I'd forget. I want to get my proof, I said. Priya helped me draft a text to Tessa. Let's talk on camera for my channel. Clear the air, you and me. We'll monetize the truth. No Ethan, just us. I knew what tone to use. Hooked, promising, sisterly. She responded in 20 seconds. Finally, tomorrow, come to our loft. Wear something cute. I didn't plan to go alone. Priya came, and she did something brilliant. She brought her small DSLR camera and a light, and she set it up in the living room with the ring light Tessa already owned. We said a clear statement at the beginning. We said, on camera, "We're filming this for a channel and both parties consent." Tessa flipped her hair and said, "Duh." Chase was there, hovering. He looked too interested. "We'll talk about how we saved you," he said to me, voice oily. I stuck to my plan. I asked questions. I let silence work. "How did you get those messages?" I asked. Tessa crossed her legs. "Friends," she said. "Friends with tech. They scraped metadata." She didn't know what metadata was. I pressed. "Which friends?" She laughed. Chase jumped in. "The internet is small," he said. "We have resources. People want to see justice." He loved the sound of his mouth forming big words. Priya held the camera steady, face blank. We kept it conversational. I said, "So you feel you protected me by interrupting my wedding?" Tessa nodded. "After everything I've done for you, Naomi, promoted your events, brought eyes, made you more than beige." She thought she was complimenting me. "You're welcome," she added. "And you didn't think to call me first?" I asked. She twisted her ring, and there it was, the ring, our grandmother's ring. It had been missing for months. She'd posted photos of it, calling it vintage. My chest went tight. I looked at her hand and said, "Where did you get that ring?" Her eyes flashed. "It's mine," she said too quickly. I'd found another proof. We wrapped after 40 minutes. We had clear statements of consent on video. We had Tessa's repeated assertion that she'd planned a redemption arc. And we had at least 3 misleading statements we could cross-reference. After, Chase couldn't help himself. He asked me if I wanted to get in early on a collab fund. I told him I'd think about it and to email the details. "Send everything," I said, smiling. He did that night. The deck was sloppy. It included a demo login with my email pre-populated. He had no idea he'd just created a sweet trail. Priya submitted takedown requests for the wedding video clips under defamation and harassment. We sent a cease and desist to Tessa jointly for defamation and to Chase for unauthorized use of my name in marketing materials. We also called the brand Tessa Pitched and sent them the email she'd sent with the redemption arc language. They forwarded it to their legal department. They politely declined to sponsor any exposure content. By morning, Tessa's video had a warning label, and half of her affiliate links were broken. Mom called me in a panic. "You're ruining her livelihood," she whispered like her phone was bugged. "She's my sister," I said. "She ruined my wedding, and she used my name for accounts. I am not ruining her anything. I'm protecting mine." Dad called next and said, "Proud of you, finally." I didn't say it out loud, but I felt something like grief when Mom's voice cooled. The difference between enabling and love is one you have to learn to live with. Here's the next twist. Ethan's truth. Tessa didn't know it at the wedding, and honestly, neither did I in full, but I learned it over the next week. Ethan wasn't just some guy at a firm. He was the one who had built the models the state was using to track the flow. He was the reason they had a map on the wall of an office with red notes connecting boxes that led to BrightArc. He had worked until midnight for months to make sure the wrong moms and small creators didn't lose their rent. He had sat there with that knowledge while I ached about vendor invoices and color palettes. He was my rock, but he was also a wall because he had to be. And I hadn't appreciated how heavy that is. He took me to meet Victor, his mentor, one of those quiet men who wear clean sneakers with suits. Victor looked at me like a parent looks at a grown daughter they want to protect. "If you're going to pursue this," he said, "you need to think like they think. They keep the heat just below boiling. They'll apologize in private and posture in public. You're going to need discipline." I nodded. I have discipline. It's the only way I survived childhood. We set a plan. Step 1. Lock down every account. Step 2. Gather proof that Tessa used my name. Step 3. Warn Mom discreetly that her credit might be compromised. When I told Mom, she denied it. Then she called me back crying because her bank had flagged a card she didn't remember opening. Tessa had used her too. I thought she was just borrowing my cable password, Mom whispered. I sent her a credit freeze link. Sometimes you have to teach your mother how to save herself. Step 4. Schedule a mediation meeting with Tessa before filing civil suits. Priya said it was good optics and also kind. I wrote it out. We will meet to discuss your actions, your false statements, and your use of my identity. Bring your documents. She responded with a string of laughing emojis and, I'll bring my lawyer, which I knew she didn't have. Chase showed up instead, in a shirt too tight and cologne so strong I could taste it. He talked over Tessa. He slid his own deck across the table and launched into a pitch using words like disruption and grassroots capital and pipeline. I watched him and felt a calm come over me, the kind that hits when you realize the villain is stupid enough to explain his plan. Chase, I said after 5 minutes, you sent me access to a login with my email preloaded and a password that gave me access to other users' accounts by changing the URL. Do you know what that looks like? He blinked. Priya slid a paper forward. We're filing with the state. This is just notice so the court can't say we didn't try. Tessa glanced at him, eyes going wide. You said, she started. He squeezed her knee under the table. We saw. It wasn't love. It was control. They walked out. Tessa threw a look over her shoulder like a girl in a teen movie. I didn't flinch. The next morning, we filed. Identity theft, defamation, unauthorized use of name and likeness. We weren't suing for a fortune. We were suing for truth and the cost of my lost deposits and the mess. We also asked for a restraining order to keep Tessa from contacting vendors or posting about me. Meanwhile, Ethan's world moved. The state scheduled interviews. They asked Tessa to come in. She cried on Instagram, said the system was out to get her for speaking truth to power. Her followers split again. Some of them DM'd me with threats. Priya reported them and asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, not yet. The thing about revenge is that if you go wide, you lose aim. I wanted to aim. Another twist arrived in the mail. A letter to me from a credit union in Rhode Island about a loan I had not taken. It had my name misspelled slightly, my address correct. I remembered Tessa's boyfriend bragging about his friend in Providence. We drove there on a Saturday and asked to see the application. I brought my ID. I brought Priya. I brought my calm voice. The manager was wary, then kind. He showed me what he could. The signature was mine, except it wasn't. I have a loop on my W that my grandfather taught me. The signature was straight. The email was wrong, Gmail instead of my Yahoo. We will investigate, the manager said. He made a copy of my ID. He gave me a small, sympathetic smile that said he had a sister too. We went home. We made dinner. We watched something silly so we didn't drown in fraud. We had to keep being people. A week later, Tessa posted a storytime video where she sobbed about being betrayed by her own family. She said I was weaponizing the law. She said she had tried to save me. She showed cut clips from our apology video where we had both consented to film and then said I had edited out her truth. The comments were vicious again. I took a breath and I didn't respond online. Priya sent her another letter. We added the misuse of our video to the takedown. Little by little, the platforms removed her content for violating policies. This wasn't dramatic. It was paperwork, but it was power.
Here's the twist that changed everything. Tessa showed up at my apartment building at midnight, buzzing my buzzer. "Let me in," she slurred. "I need your laptop back." I didn't have a laptop of hers, but she wouldn't let it go. "I don't have it," I said into the intercom. "Tess, go home." She cursed at me. It was loud enough to wake the neighbor's dog. After a pause, I heard footsteps at the side door. My building has a camera. The next morning, the landlord sent me the footage. Tessa trying the handle. Chase behind her, hoodie up. Everyone in the building got the notice. Everyone. I printed it, I didn't post it. I brought it to court when we went for the restraining order. The judge watched the clip. Tessa looked small on the courtroom screen. The judge granted a limited order, no coming to my building, no contact with my vendors, no posting my personal information. Tessa's face crumpled. It was the first time I saw fear instead of performance. The state called Ethan in to testify in a closed session. Then they called Tessa. She showed up in an outfit like she was going to brunch. They asked her questions. We weren't in the room, but we got the gist after. She said she hadn't known about the accounts. She said she had been in love and trusted Chase. She said she had wanted to help me. She cried. I wanted to believe her for a second. But then I found an email in my spam, auto-forwarded from the old joint Gmail we'd used when we planned a surprise party for Mom years ago. She'd used it recently to register an LLC, in my name. It was a shell company linked to BrightArc. The date? 3 days before she grabbed that microphone. Love and trust don't sign paperwork for someone else. Greed does. I have to tell you about the moment the truth exploded. It wasn't glamorous. It was a press conference on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. in a beige room with bad lighting. The state attorney general stood at a podium and announced charges against BrightArc's leadership for fraud, deceptive practices, and misuse of personal information. She reviewed the numbers, the victims, the trail, and then she said, "We want to thank the forensic accounting team and the whistleblowers who took risks to bring this to light." Ethan was standing to the side. The camera panned. Tessa was at home watching, I know because she started texting me, "WTF is Ethan doing there?" over and over, as if the question could make the answer untrue. That was the truth she didn't know at my wedding. The quiet man she had called boring was the one who put together the puzzle that shut down her boyfriend's scheme. She went silent online for a day. Then she posted a selfie with puffy eyes and a long caption about being blindsided. She didn't mention me. She mentioned lawyers she didn't have. Then her brand partners started dropping off one by one. It turned out brands like to avoid fraud cases. The affiliate networks sent her termination notices. If you're ever tempted to think social media is power, remember it's rented. We didn't stop. We proceeded with mediation for my civil claims. Tessa showed up without Chase. He was unavailable because he'd been picked up for questioning. She wore a sweater I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago. It had a snag in the sleeve. She didn't meet my eyes. "Naomi," she said, voice small, "we can fix this between us." I nodded. "That's what we're doing." Priya outlined what we wanted. Removal of all posts about me. A public apology video recorded with Priya present. Return of the ring. Restitution for the wedding losses. And an agreement to pay me back for the identity theft over a timeline. It wasn't a mountain. It was a responsibility. Tessa looked at Priya, not me. "What if I don't?" Priya didn't flinch. Then we proceed, and we ask the court for attorney's fees. Tessa glanced at the clock like time could save her. She sighed and said, "Fine, whatever, I'll apologize." The words sounded like an allergic reaction. We set a date to film the apology. She cried during it. It was a miserable thing to watch, someone trying to cry like a performance and then realizing it has to be real. She said, "I betrayed my sister. I spread false statements. I used her name without permission. I have been shut down for a reason. I will make this right." We posted it to my channel with comments off. We sent a copy to the court file. It wasn't revenge fireworks. It was justice, documented. Returning the ring took 3 days. She didn't want to let it go. I had to meet her in a coffee shop with a receipt from my grandmother's will and a notary. She took it off slowly. Her finger was white where it had been. She put it on the table like she was laying down a weapon. I slipped it in the velvet box and felt heat behind my eyes. That ring wasn't just a ring. It was a line back to women who survived worse than a sister's envy. I went home and put it in a safe. We rescheduled the wedding for a month later, smaller, without a maid of honor or a flower arch. It was in a brick-walled room with fairy lights and 20 people who would show up if I called them at 3 a.m. We didn't post the date. We didn't send out fancy invites. We didn't invite my sister. That decision cost me sleep. I imagined her watching, nose pressed to glass she wasn't invited to. I asked myself if I was cruel. Ethan talked with me long after midnight, both of us in our pajamas with cups of tea. "Cruelty is what she did to you," he said. "Boundaries are kindness to yourself." The morning of the new date, Tessa texted, "I know. I won't come. But can I see you later?" I stared at the screen. I said, "Another day." She sent a heart. That's a strange thing about sisters. You can be betrayed and still ache at their small hearts. The room glowed. Ethan waited for me like he had the first time, except this time, my heart didn't have to hold an ocean of fear. It could just be a heart. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, no one took a microphone. When we said our vows, I put in a line I hadn't planned. I will not let secrets rot the seams of our life. Ethan nodded, eyes wet. We danced in sneakers. Dad cried and pretended he had dust in his eye. Mom hugged me too long and whispered, "I'm proud of you." She wasn't proud because I married. She was proud because I didn't fold. The case against Bright Arc moved like a train. Slow, then fast, then slow again. Chase was indicted. He took a plea later, for a fraction. He posted a statement that read like it had been squeezed out of him. He unfollowed Tessa and deleted photos with her. Her love vanished. Karma isn't a lightning bolt, it's a spreadsheet and a calendar and a door closing slowly until you realize you're in a different room. We went back to court for the civil part. The judge asked simple questions. "Ms. Wells, did you fabricate messages?" Tessa said no at first, like a reflex. Then Priya played a clip from our apology video where Tessa had said, "We had friends help us gather the proof." It wasn't a slam dunk admission, but it didn't look good. The judge asked, "Did you open accounts in your sister's name?" Tessa tried a third route. It was a misunderstanding. The judge didn't smile. "Misunderstanding is not a legal term of art here," he said. In the end, we reached a settlement. Tessa would pay restitution over time, remove all content, refrain from mentioning me publicly for 2 years, and attend a financial literacy class and counseling. The identity theft charges were deferred if she completed those conditions, and only because she was not the mastermind and had cooperated later. It made me angry and relieved. Angry because my life had been used, relieved because my sister wasn't going to prison because she met a reckless man. Consequence without destruction. That was the balance I wanted, even when my pettiness wanted something worse. Here's where my revenge sharpened into something clean. I didn't just want her to pay me back and disappear. I wanted the truth to live somewhere besides a feed. So I started a series at my event planning business called Clear Ledger, a workshop for small creators and women who want to start businesses without being chewed up by funds. Victor gave a talk. Priya did a segment on contracts. Ethan stood in the back and smiled at me like a man who knows he married someone who refuses to be beige. We offered sliding scale seats and free credit check help. Tessa was not invited to the first one, but 3 months later, she asked if she could attend. She sent a long email, the kind without emojis. She asked if she could sit in the back, under a different name so no one would make a scene. I said yes and reminded her of the restraining order's terms. She came. She took notes. She left without speaking to me. She sent me a letter later. It wasn't an apology. It was a confession. She wrote about being 21 and realizing that people paid attention when she cried. She wrote about feeling like she was always behind me, even when I was just standing still planning family parties. She wrote about Chase telling her she could be someone, and that someone was worth more than me being steady. She wrote about grabbing the microphone because she wanted to be the hero so bad she didn't care whose life she set on fire. She ended with, "I don't know how to be anyone else yet." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer with the ring. I didn't forgive that day. I didn't call her and say it's fine. But something in me let go of the fantasy that a public apology would fix us. Revenge wasn't going to give me back a simple sisterhood. It was going to give me a boundary where I could stand and not be moved. Months passed. The settlement payments arrived on time. Small checks with Tessa's shaky signature. Some bounced. The bounced ones came with fees Chase would have ignored. She paid them. She posted cozy at-home photos without affiliate links. She got a job at a boutique. She stopped live streaming every tear. She had to get a roommate. It wasn't a tragic fall. It was a landing with bruises. Mom started to see the difference between saving someone and letting them hit the ground enough to stand. Do you want to know what the sweetest moment of justice was? It wasn't the judge's gavel. It was an email from the venue where we had almost married the first time. The owner wrote, "We heard what happened. We saw your poise. We also know Ethan from a board we sit on. We'd like to offer a partial credit for a future event." I laughed out loud. Karma had sent me an RSVP. We used it for a fundraiser for the workshop series. We offered free childcare. Tessa RSVP'd no. She sent $50 with a note that said, "For childcare snacks." Some people will say this ending isn't dramatic enough. They want the betrayer to lose everything. They want a scene where I stand in a doorway and watch my sister cry in the rain while I toss her a pity blanket. Life isn't like that. Life is you in your kitchen at 11 p.m., washing mugs, knowing you did the paperwork and the planning and the waiting. Revenge is not slashing tires. It's exposing the truth, shutting down lies, and choosing to build something in the space they tried to burn. It's trusting that time will finish what you started. Ethan and I took a weekend away finally, months after the chaos. We went to the Cape and watched gulls fight over French fries. We laughed. We spoke about nothing and everything. He told me he has a new case, but this time he told me what he could up front. Secrets aren't lurking in the corners of our rooms anymore. When he fell asleep on the hotel bed, I lay there and thought about Tessa. I pictured her in her small apartment, a heap of thrift store pillows around her. I pictured her scrolling less. I pictured her eyes without lashes heavy as wings. I sent up a quiet hope for her and then put my phone face down. The last twist came not with a bang, but a knock. It was Tessa at my door, 2 months until her probationary period would end. She stood there without mascara, holding a manila envelope. "Can I come in?" she asked. I looked at the clock, at the cat, at my own hands. I nodded and stepped aside. Ethan stayed in the bedroom, but listened because that's marriage. Tessa sat. She put the envelope on the table and pushed it to me. It was a list of passwords and a note with the words, "All accounts I opened are closed. Here's proof." I sold the last of the jewelry I bought with the card and paid the fee. She looked at me and said, "I returned everything." I nodded. She swallowed. "I won't be at Christmas. I think I make it hard for Mom to see you. But I wanted you to know I'm doing the class. I got a C on the last quiz." We both laughed a little. C is better than contempt. She stood to leave. I said, "Tess." She paused. "I can't forget what you did at my wedding," I said. "It lives in me." She nodded. "I know," she said. "I can't forget what I did either. I replay it and my stomach drops." She put her hand on the door jamb. "I thought I had to expose someone else to be loud enough. I don't actually want to be that person anymore." She left. The door clicked. I leaned my forehead against it and let myself feel the relief that revenge isn't always the end of the story. Sometimes it's a middle that lets another story start. Now, when people ask me what my husband's truth was, I tell them this. He's the kind of man who would hold a map of a crime in his head for months and not use it as a weapon at dinner. He's the kind who would stand at my ruined wedding and not demand I choose him over my own blood. He would quietly trust me to choose the truth. He's the kind who would show up in a poorly lit room and present numbers so the state can shut down a shiny lie. And he's the kind of man who will always, always hand me the pen when it's time to sign my name and make it very clear that my name is mine. Tessa faced consequences. She lost her fast money, her boyfriend, her platform, the easy applause. She gained a job that pays something, and a counselor who calls her out when she starts scripting her life like a show. She will always have a part of my history that can't be edited, but she doesn't have my future. That belongs to me and the quiet room where I said vows under fairy lights and felt safe. My revenge was patient and it was legal. I froze credits, filed reports, and with Priya and Ethan and quiet men in clean sneakers, I built a case. I didn't scream into microphones. I didn't set a match to a dress. I exposed the truth. I shut down the lies. I watched karma do the rest with a boring, relentless grace. And when I stood in front of the mirror on our new wedding day, I pinned my own veil and whispered to myself, "You chose yourself." Then I walked down an aisle no one could take from me.